Just about sailing. October 2020. In the last video, I think I said that I was hoping to get another one out at the end of September. Well, I didn't. Part of the reason was, and this is part two of putting the windlass on. Part of the job is to clean the anchor locker out, which is behind me, get all the stuff off the side, for various reasons that I'm not going to bore you with now. That has taken and is still taking a very, very long time. So what I'm going to cover today is, remember on the first one, I'll do a link to the first video here, I made this sort of fake floor, mock floor, to see if, by the way, it's blowing a hoolie outside. It's quite nice actually, because the boat is sort of moving about a bit and I can hear the chain clanking, so it's a little bit like being on a real boat in real water. I made this mock-up just to see if this was in the right position, and to be quite honest, what I could have done was simply plastered this with fiberglass and epoxy, put an epoxy bead around the side, drilled a hole out the front of the boat, and you know what, that would have probably done fine. But I decided not to do that for a few reasons. One, I needed some tasks that I could do in sort of short chunks, sort of 10-15 minutes each. And secondly, I wanted to practice a few things, a bit of woodworking, a bit of the way that I'm going to be doing the holding tank, check if epoxy works with certain things, and also I wanted to do this thing with putting a seacock in. So anyway, without further ado, let's just get into this and then show you the stage that I've got up to right now. Right, I've cut out some more plywoods, much more accurately as the floor for the chain locker. I think the one that I used for the test was 10mm, this is 12, and I thought actually I want a bit more than that, so I'm going to glue two bits together. And then I thought, just for the sake of it, this is the art of unnecessary fiberglassing. Why not actually do a fiberglass sandwich? I was going to have fiberglass top and bottom eventually once I fit it properly, but let's make it as strong can possibly be. And I haven't actually done any fiberglassing for ages, and once I thought of it, I thought I've got to do it. It's a bit like making a Victoria sponge, I suppose. That will do fine. So, was that necessary? Absolutely not. But hopefully you can see the light's gone down a little bit. All I've really done is made this from 12mm to 24, 25 really, because the bit in the middle, if you can see there's a stripe in the middle, is just a fiberglass layer. I just wanted to do it. Anyway, that is solid. Right, so I've done it in pencil rather than felt pen, but you can see that's where I've marked a line round by pushing this stick up against the side of the hull and then bring it back exactly the same distance, because I know that this edge was fitting fine, or more or less fine. And then if I cut that at an angle, so I don't cut that at all, cut that bit off, that should give me roughly the angle. And you'll notice that there's quite a big difference here, due to just the geometry of curves. Are always the difficult bits, aren't they? Due to the geometry of the way the curve works. So anyway, let's get the angle grinder on that and see if my theory works. Now I know what you're saying. Hang on, Paul, I thought you said you were going to start to do proper woodwork. Well look, that was just the rough thing. I'm now going to smooth this down and I'm going to sand it. There you go, let's give this a test fit. So you might say, doesn't that look nice? You might say, well hang on, this is never ever going to be seen by anybody ever again once it's installed. Why are you taking so much care over this? Well, partly because it's nice to have it fitting as good as possible, and if you look at this, this really isn't good. A proper woodworker could do this 1,000 times better. But secondly, it's practice, because as I'm doing more and more things which need to be precise and will be seen, it's a good idea to get this fitting as well as possible. I'm particularly happy with this bit actually, that's come out really nice. So there we go. Anyway, people will see it because you're watching it right now. Right, so is it going to fit? It should do. Oh, it does. I mean, oh yeah, it does, look. Wow. It's going to be interesting to see this. It may or may not work. So just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. That's it, and you can see where the light's shining through. There is a big gap there where the hole was obviously a different shape. But either I'm going to decide that this is fine, because I'm not going to redo this, or there is a trick that I kind of learned or invented when I was doing the rudder. And that might, actually I don't know, I'm tempted to, now I've thought of it, I'm tempted to do that. We shall see. Right, so the next step is to have a hose barb sticking out from underneath this new floor, and obviously the boat, front of the boat is going at an angle, so this is going to need to be put in at an angle. Hopefully that makes sense. I've taken this particular True Design thing because this is the one that I want to do on the holding tank, and I want to test out that this stuff really does stick with epoxy, which it's supposed to do. So the holding tank is going to have a floor about this big and about this thick, so I'm kind of practicing for the holding tank a little bit. It's about 45 degrees. So as per always, wetting it out. This just helps the epoxy seep into the wood. Really push this into the threads, because I do want this to stick. Beautiful. I'm finishing this off reasonably well because I don't particularly want to come back and sand it or anything at the next stage. So there we go. Let that dry. Let that cure, set, whatever you want to call it, and take it from there. Right, so that is on there very nicely indeed. So this is the bit the chain's going to go on. I'm not going to do anything more to that at the moment, or probably not even until I've actually fitted it. But underneath I'm going to put a couple of layers of fiberglass, which I suppose I could have done earlier, but that means that I can actually put the fiberglass around this bit. Right, so before I do a dry fit inside, I've figured out where the through hole needs to be, and these magnets are great. So I've put a magnet on the other side, so I know that I can open up the seacock and I can get my hand in and so on. And I'm quite happy with the outlet being there. It's high enough up from the, way high enough up from, that's the actual water level, way high enough up from there. It's nicely back. I can put one of those clamshells on it, and I know exactly where it's going to be because of this. So I'm just going to mark this up, take the magnet off from the inside, drill yet another hole in my bow. I'm always pleased when I drill these holes to see just how thick the layup is. That's about 12 millimeters. That's the bit that came out of here. So good and solid. So this is just a dry fit. So I'm just going to pop this through there for the time being. Obviously there's going to be a clamshell over here and this will all be sealed properly. Right, so you can see the through hole poking through. This is going to have an inspection hatch on it. I need to make that a little bit bigger. This is a bit of wood that goes up against the hole to make that all flat. Obviously I need to cut a bit of that off. So there we go. You can see there's just about access in there. That's where the pipe goes to the front of the thing, and that's where the hole is. I need to put one of these on. This is what was sort of on the side of the anchor locker with this shackle which is completely corroded and the rope rode on it. So what I'm going to do is to cut this off. I'm going to reuse this, but I'm actually going to put it through here, glass it in so it's all nice and watertight and so on. So don't need to show you that, but I'll show you what it looks like when I've done it. So there we go, I've got that on. See, it's bolted in the back. I was going to fiberglass over this, but to be quite honest, I've put a ton of epoxy, ton of 406 filler. That is very, very watertight, very, very, very strong. So what I've done is I've cleaned a little area here, which is where this is going to be going, and I've actually put just a thin layer, 2 inches or so of 2-3 inches of fiberglass around it, just to give it a little bit of better stickability. So I've got some sticky back plastic and I'm basically going to wrap this around the edges. So I'm certainly not aiming for perfection with this, but I have wrapped this round, corners being the most difficult parts, making sure there's absolutely no possibility of any epoxy getting through to the wood. Epoxy thickened with 406. This is not quite peanut butter consistency, but it should be alright for doing on a vertical wall. And I'm going to pinch this method from Mads that I've never used before, which is to use an industrial strength icing thing. So I'm trying to put this in just above the line, and I'm not going to show too much of this simply because I've actually got one hand around one side of the camera and one from the other, so sorry, but and also the battery is just running out, so I'm going to do the rest of this and show you. The battery ran out just as I was speaking then. So there you go, I've got a bead of this all the way around there, just on the bottom line. I'm now going to put this in. So the theory is I should be left with like a little ledge that I can line this thing up with. When I do actually glue it down, it'll go down quite nicely and there won't be any sort of fiddling about. Probably didn't need to do that, but you've watched this channel before, you know there's probably a lot of things I don't need to do. Right, so it's actually 2 days later. I didn't get to the boat yesterday. What I'm hoping is this is just going to pop straight off without having stuck, and that there'll be a little bit of an edge around this side. So let's just oink this up. Don't stick on me. I need a hammer or something. No, don't stick. I need exactly a hammer. Let me go and get a hammer. Right, one hammer later. There we go. Was I worried? Yes, I was. Okay, I've trimmed this off and cleaned it a bit. By the way, I've just put one coat of epoxy with some white pigment on it, and it's all a bit streaky because I think I didn't put enough pigment in it. but it's just literally to make it look a little bit brighter when I look through the inspection hatch, so don't worry about that too much. I think you can see there's a kind of a ledge there, not brilliant and not good at all at the front where I did that, but it's enough to get it in place. I should have squished more of this in. I think the fact that I was using that slope as being the same as that slope wasn't quite right. There was enough of a change to have made a difference, but hey ho, when I actually put it in, at least I know it's going to settle onto that ledge properly, and I will put a ton of fixing stuff in there, and this is not gonna fail through being too weak. That's for sure. So here is the first mock-up, because what I want to do, if you can see here, is to get the hose exactly the right length. That's a bit of a shorter bit of hose that I had on it. So let me, you can see that's where the through hole comes through. That's the front, and it's literally impossible to film. So the next thing to do is to get the right length of tubing sorted out. I couldn't film cutting this to length because it was just too awkward to get in there. But basically what I did is I made it overlong, and then I cut a slice off at a time and looked at fitting it. So I probably made it about an inch too long in the first place, then cut a quarter of an inch off at the time. And to fit it, I used a heat gun to sort of soften this up, because this really is quite tough stuff. I've also kind of bent this roughly to the shape, again using the heat gun. I need to turn it a little bit. And I put double circlips on. So just a sneak preview, this is the inspection hatch where I can get to that seacock. This will all be tidied up and cleaned and so on. And this little shape cut out at the top here, that's to do with the watertight inspection hatch I'm putting for the actual chain. So there you go, and let's just prove to myself that I can actually operate the seacock through this inspection hatch. Right, at the moment the awkward thing is holding all this stuff together because it's obviously not glued on. So it's awkward, but I can get my hand in there. There's a little bit of room between the handle and the bulkhead. And if needs be, I can operate it. This is actually in with Sikaflex because I had a tube that was going to be going out of date by January, so I decided to use Sikaflex on the CT1. I've just rammed this up here. That's just literally resting on there. I'm just going to put a massive bead of epoxy, thickened epoxy with 406 around there. And I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see because I am wetting this out. It's very awkward, but I think it's easier than putting the tubing in afterwards. Right, this is going to be more tricky, so I don't know how much of this you're going to see. I'm not going to be as stingy as I was before. Particularly around that front bit, which I should do first. So sorry, I'm going to be right in the way here, aren't I? Yeah, there's certainly an elegant efficiency of stuff in there. Let's see if I can do this so you can see what I'm doing. This is where having that shelf, I think, is going to pay off. Because I know what I'm pushing down to. Right, I'm going to put a thin piece of 5mm round. This is not going to be the final fillet, but this is just belt braces and elbow braces. That was awkward and fiddly, but it's done, so I shall let that set. This side was tending to spring up a little bit, probably because of the pressure from the hose, so I've put 3 2-litre bottles of water on there, and that's kept it down nicely. So here we go, this has worked out just fine. I need to tidy this up a little bit. I was a little bit sloppy on some of the edges, but it's still worked out fine. And I need to trim a little bit of this, but this is in there as solid as you like. Everything seems to have worked out absolutely fine. I think the next video will probably be, I've been doing some other work. I've been doing some work on the dinghy, so we might do that, and then hopefully we'll get on to part 3 fairly shortly of actually fitting the windlass. I have done bits, I've drilled holes through the deck, I've been doing lots of preparation, measuring work and so on for that side of it, but I wanted to keep those out of this video. So there we are, I've got the floor sorted out. There are going to be some changes to this. It's going to be sort of fiberglassed over. I need to do some moulding at the front where the hole is, so the hole is definitely at the lowest point. So anyway, whatever happens, I will see you in November. That might be the dinghy video. Hopefully I'll get the dinghy and the windlass video, and as I said right at the beginning, it's absolutely blowing a gale at the moment, so I've put some waterproofing over the top. The temperatures are still fine, so I'm hoping that I can still do all the epoxy and stuff that I need to do. Have a good one. See you in November. Cheers.